Hello, learners. I'm Dr. Shea, and welcome back to World Literature Unpacked. Last week, we compared works across time and looked at how literature changes depending on the ideas of an era. This week, we're doing the opposite. Instead of zooming out at history, we're zooming all the way in. We're moving into close reading, which means we're not asking what happens in the text, we're asking how the text creates meaning. In other words, we are officially retiring the line-by-line summary. Yes, the plot is important, but for this assignment, the plot is not the point. We're going to focus on the poet's choices, the words, the structure, the sounds, and the patterns that quietly guide the reader toward a deeper idea. Because poems don't usually tell you what they mean, they build meaning piece by piece. Ready to unpack it? Let's go for it. Now let's start with the first section of your paper. Language. This is where you zoom in on the poet's word choices, not the story, not the events, the actual words on the page. Think of yourself as examining the poem under a microscope. You will choose specific words or short phrases from the poem and explain why the poet chose them. What emotion do they create? What idea do they suggest about the speaker? What attitude do they reveal? Simply identifying a device is not analysis. Writing, "This is imagery," or "This is metaphor," earns you exactly 0 understanding points. Your job is to explain what that imagery or metaphor does to the meaning. For example, if a poet describes nature as gentle, violent, empty, or alive, those are not just descriptions. They tell us how the speaker sees the world, and often how the speaker feels internally. So in this section, quote small pieces, interpret them carefully, and connect them to the poem's message. You are not labeling techniques. You are explaining how language creates meaning. Next is your structure section. Here you are analyzing the way the poem is organized. Not the vocabulary anymore, but the design of the poem itself. Look at things like stanza breaks, line length, repetition, rhyme, rhythm, or even the lack of those things. Poems are arranged intentionally. The poet decides where a line stops, where a thought pauses, and where something repeats. Your job is to explain how those choices affect the reader. Does a short line create tension? Does repetition emphasize an idea? Does a sudden break interrupt a calm moment? Does a steady rhythm feel peaceful or controlled? Do not just name the structure. Saying this poem uses free verse is not analysis. Explain why that form helps communicate the poem's meaning or emotion. Think of structure as the poem's body, while language is the voice. Together, they guide how we experience the poem. Now we move into the meaning section. This is where you connect your analysis from language and structure and explain the poem's deeper message. You are no longer focusing on individual words or line breaks. Instead, you are answering the big question: what does the poem ultimately reveal? Based on the poet's choices, what does the poem suggest about human experience, identity, nature, memory, love, power, or society? Important. This is not a summary. Do not retell the poem again. Your interpretation should grow out of the evidence you already discussed. In other words, your meaning section is the conclusion of your argument, not a new idea. If your language and structure sections are the clues, this section is you solving the case. Explain what the poem is saying and how the poet's choices lead the reader to that understanding. And that's your close reading roadmap. You are not retelling the poem, you are proving your interpretation. Start with the poet's language, examine the structure, connect those ideas to meaning, and then wrap it up clearly. If you follow the template step by step, your paper basically writes itself. And yes, that is the closest thing to a life hack you're getting in literature class. Take your time, read the poem more than once, and let the details guide your thinking. All right, everyone, that's it for this week. I'm Dr. Shea. Happy analyzing, and I'll see you next week.